She never wanted to hurt anyone. All she ever wanted was to be invisible, to slip through life without being noticed. But that day, when the laughter echoed through the school stairwell and her body hit the cold floor after being shoved, something inside her broke. The quiet girl everyone ignored was gone. And the person who stood up, who snapped their ankles like breadsticks, was someone nobody had ever seen before. What pushed her to that moment? And what happened after would change everyone's lives forever. Lena had always been the kind of girl who spoke only when necessary. Her long hair usually covered half her face, and she preferred sketching in the margins of her notebooks over raising her hand in class. Teachers called her shy. Classmates called her weird. But the truth was, Lena was just trying to survive in silence. Every day felt like walking into a battlefield she hadn't signed up for. Her classmates, especially the loud ones in the back row, seemed to have radar for weakness. They called her names, stole her lunch, knocked her books out of her hands, and laughed when she picked them up. But Lena endured it, swallowing her anger like bitter medicine. At home, her mother worked 2 jobs and barely had time to notice the bruises on her daughter's arms. Her father had left years ago, and Lena knew better than to add one more burden to her mother's shoulders. She bottled it up, every cruel word and shove, until her silence felt like a prison she built around herself. One afternoon, the storm finally came. Lena had stayed late in the library, clutching the one place where she felt safe. The stairwell was quiet as she walked down, hugging her sketchbook to her chest. That's when she heard it, snickers, footsteps, and the sharp voice of Tessa, the leader of the bullies. "Well, look who it is." The little mute mouse, Tessa sneered, blocking Lena's path with 2 other girls at her side. Lena tried to step around them, but one shoved her back. "Say something," the girl hissed. "What's wrong? Cat got your tongue?" Lena kept her head down. She thought maybe, like always, if she didn't react, they would get bored. But not this time. Tessa's grin widened. "You're pathetic. Nobody would even notice if you disappeared." Before Lena could move, a hard shove sent her tumbling down the steps. Her body hit each stair, her sketchbook scattering pages of her drawings in the air like broken wings. She landed at the bottom with a sickening thud, pain exploding through her arm. Above her, laughter rang out, cold, cruel, triumphant. Lena lay there, staring at the ceiling, gasping for air. She could taste blood at the corner of her mouth. And in that moment, something inside her snapped. The quiet, trembling girl who took every hit and insult without a word, was gone. She stood up slowly, her body trembling, not with fear this time, but with something darker. Her hand gripped the railing as she climbed back up the stairs toward them. The girls stopped laughing. There was something in Lena's eyes they had never seen before. "You shouldn't have done that," Lena whispered, her voice steady and low. Before they could react, Lena moved. Her hands, small and fragile-looking, seized the nearest girl's ankle and twisted. A sharp crack echoed through the stairwell, followed by a scream. Panic filled their eyes as Lena turned to the next, striking with precision born not of rage but of release. Another sickening snap. Tessa stumbled backward, her face pale with terror. "Why, you're crazy," she shouted, but her voice cracked. Lena didn't answer. She simply stood there, chest heaving, her sketches scattered around her like a storm of forgotten dreams. For the first time in years, the silence was gone. The bullies who once ruled the hallways were on the ground, writhing in pain. And Lena, the quiet girl, walked away, not broken, not invisible anymore. But what came next was only the beginning. News of the stairwell incident spread like wildfire. By the next morning, the entire school knew. Some said she had gone feral, some whispered she had trained in secret martial arts, others insisted she had snapped. The bullies were carried away in casts, their ankles shattered. And for once, nobody laughed at Lena when she walked through the halls. They stared instead, some with fear, some with awe. She could feel the shift, like the whole world had finally noticed her, but in the wrong way. The principal called Lena into his office. He leaned across his desk, eyes sharp behind his glasses. "Lena, this is serious. You could be expelled, even arrested. Violence is never the answer." She didn't argue. What could she say? That she hadn't meant to go that far? That she had lived through years of torment, and this was the moment her body chose to fight back? Words felt useless. Her mother was called in. She sat beside Lena, pale and shaking, clutching her daughter's hand. "My little girl," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" For the first time, Lena broke down. The walls of silence crumbled as she poured out everything, the names, the bruises, the endless ridicule. Her mother wept with her, realizing she had been blind while her daughter suffered alone. The investigation dragged on for weeks. Parents of the bullies demanded punishment. But some students spoke up, kids who had seen the bullying but had been too afraid to intervene. Slowly, the truth unraveled. The school board couldn't ignore the years of torment Lena had endured. Instead of expulsion, Lena was placed in therapy. The court ruled it as self-defense under extreme bullying. It wasn't justice in the perfect sense, but it was enough. And something else happened, something Lena never expected. Other quiet kids, the ones who sat alone at lunch, started talking to her. They whispered thank yous in the hallways, their eyes shining with courage she had given them without meaning to. Even some of the louder kids, once indifferent, now walked beside her, not out of pity but respect. Lena hadn't just snapped ankles that day. She had snapped the silence of an entire school. One evening, as she sat on her bed sketching again, her mother came in. "You're stronger than you think, Lena," she said softly. "But strength isn't about breaking others, it's about healing yourself." Those words stayed with Lena. She realized that the fight hadn't been about revenge, it had been about finally being seen, finally standing up after years of being shoved down. And though her hands would always remember the sound of bones snapping, her heart began to learn something new, how to rebuild, not just survive. From that day forward, Lena was no longer the quiet girl. She was the girl who had endured, who had risen, and who had changed everything. And anyone who looked at her knew one thing: she would never be invisible again. Sparkle's ending message for viewers. Sometimes, silence hides the deepest pain. But when the world pushes you too far, remember, your voice, your strength, your courage can change everything. Stand tall, even if your voice shakes.